Welcome back. Fine Strength Podcast. Brittany and I are recording yet again. Today we have an awesome guest, man. Parker. I'm super stoked to have you here, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Buckle up, folks.
Yeah. Just so you know, warning, or I don't know.
Yeah, trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
Trigger
Yeah.
warning.
Parker is going to share his story, and it does involve, a death of two loved ones and stuff like that. So just make sure, kids are around and stuff like that. This is an adult podcast. We do not make this podcast for children. So, yeah.
Take it away, babe.
Any other warnings?
What's really cool is now that Brendy's really stepped up her game on the podcast.
What does that mean, Ryan?
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
That means that once upon a time I had a different co-host.
That's true. I did. I stepped up.
And she stepped up and now pulls in a lot of the guests and does a lot of the materials and writes a lot of the questions and comes up with a lot of stuff. It's really amazing. I appreciate you. You know Caitlin and Zach.
Caitlin and Zach. Yeah. So that's how we know Parker.
That's how we know Parker.
Uh-huh.
So take it away.
Take
man.
it away.
Your
So,
guest, your questions. Bring it.
Caitlin, my nail girl, she's full. Can't contact her. Right? No, she's mine. Just kidding. Anyways, Caitlin is a good friend of mine I've known since junior high. And you are her brother-in-law, correct?
Correct.
You're her husband's brother. And so she shared, obviously, her story, your story with me and stuff like that. And it really affected me in a big way. So I'm really grateful that you're willing to come on here and share your story. We'll just go ahead and jump right in, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, don't mind at all.
And you can take it and start it wherever you want to. But maybe give us a background, like where are you from? How many siblings do you have? And then go from there.
Yeah, sure. No, I'm from Sandy, Utah. Born and raised, went to Jordan High School. I have 4 older brothers, so it was all boys in there. And so,
right.
Yeah, so getting married and having to live with a girl for the first time was an absolute... Can we swear on here?
Yes.
Mind fuck is what it was.
It was, yeah.
So
a little shock to the system, huh?
But no, it was, and so, yeah, 4 older brothers. We're all into sports. That was our upbringing was sports, baseball, football, basketball, whatever we could do. Everything resulted in a throwing competition.
We have 3 boys.
That's what
I grew up with 3 boys. We know.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
Get it, man. I get
Everything
it.
was a
Straight
competition.
I can only imagine 5.
Wrestling and fighting all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but we're all super close. Always have
Which
been.
is
And
cool.
Yeah.
That's
But we, as life ventured on, I'm the youngest of 5, so there's a 15-year age gap from the oldest to me.
Oh, wow. That's a big gap, too.
Huge gap.
Yeah.
So we're all, wasn't intentional, but 4 years apart, 3.5, 4 years apart.
Okay.
So by the time I got older, the older 2 were, kind of out of the house and, living their adult lives. And so us bottom 3, we're always in the house. And so, grew up that way. And so, but yeah, so then, Zach got married and he moved out. And then, my brother Matt comes home and from his mission, and he comes home and he goes to college. And so now I was the only child, and basically
Was that so lonely?
in high school. Yeah, it was lonely.
I feel like that would be
Especially after
so
5 freaking
lonely
brothers.
after
Yeah.
that many siblings
Yeah.
together. Aw.
So I was like an only child all through high school. And so, but as time went on and, I got on with my life, I actually served my mission down in Arizona.
Oh, okay.
I wasn't going to bring that part up, but that's my
how you got
connection
to Arizona,
with
yes.
Arizona.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I met Jordan, my wife, who she's from a town called Safford, Arizona, about 2.5 hours east of Mesa.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, smaller town, not super small, but still small. It's like 25,000 people. And so, yeah, I was living in Utah. I went down to Phoenix to, with a friend that lives there, and we went to a couple baseball games. And she was up with her girlfriends in the Phoenix Valley. And, we ended up going to Scottsdale, and that's where I met her. We're all just
funny.
out in Old Town
Oh my
Scottsdale.
gosh,
so,
small world, I tell you.
yeah.
I love Scottsdale.
How that happens.
By
I love
chance.
It.
I love
It's cool.
Scottsdale.
Yeah,
good times.
Great food, man. Some of the best food I've ever had in my life.
It is.
Scottsdale.
It is. So,
Oh, yeah. Best steak I've ever had in my entire life. Scottsdale, Arizona.
Scottsdale seems to have everything.
Oh, there
And it's high-end stuff, too.
it is. It's nice, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so, we're at this bar called Whiskey Row down in Scottsdale, and
that sounds
that's where I
fun.
ran into Jordan. I bought her a drink, and we exchanged numbers and went on her nights. And then I texted her the next day, and we just kept talking and talking. And
Did you live in Arizona at the
no,
time?
I was still
way.
living in Utah.
Oh my goodness.
She was in Safford, and we just started talking and hit it off. And
No way. That's cool.
yeah, and our first date, she bought me a plane ticket, and she was going to go to Dierks Bentley concert in
Mhm.
Phoenix with her friends. She bought me a ticket and a plane ticket and flew me down to Phoenix.
Oh my gosh.
Dude,
And-
this girl is a baller.
She's a baller.
That's
a
cool.
She's so awesome, man.
Dude, that is so
But
cool.
I remember telling my mom that first off, my mom asked me, she goes, what do you think of this girl? I'm like, she's really cool. I really enjoy it, but she lives in Safford.
Mhm.
And I was like, I've done one long distance relationship before. It's terrible.
Mhm.
And so I told my mom, I'm like, this would be another long distance relationship.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to do this. Anyway, she flies me down. We, have a good time down there. I come back up and my mom's like, cause I was still living at my mom's house. And she was like, so how'd it go? And I looked at her and I went, I'm in trouble.
Oh,
I'm
no,
in
you
trouble.
knew.
I was like, this is bad. This is bad. So, but yeah.
I'm falling.
Yeah. And so we did long distance for a little bit, a couple trips for me down there. She came up here and I ended up moving to Mesa. She ended up moving from Safford to Mesa, and we got engaged and married and had a
Aw.
kid within, a little over a year
Wow.
after we got
Aw.
married. And
I love it.
yeah,
It's
and
beautiful, man.
then, yeah, thank you. I'm grateful for the story that, we have, especially
love
after
story,
everything
man.
that's,
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's-
after everything that's
story.
happened, it's even more so of
More beautiful and
exactly.
and like an actual something you probably don't take for granted, that love that you had with her.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's so cool.
And you take it for granted sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
looking
for sure,
back,
when
it's
you're
like,
living it.
I wish I would have, told her I love her more, and I wish I would have, told her she was pretty more, and and I did it a lot, but you just wish you did it more.
More. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Oh, man, that's tough. So you have the first baby, and
Yeah.
then you get pregnant again, correct?
right. So she has a child from another
Okay.
previous marriage, and so we had a stepdaughter, or
Okay.
I had a stepdaughter. She's 9 right now, and then we had one of our own.
Okay.
And so he's 4. And so, and so this would have been, Mac would have been number 3,
Okay.
and we were done.
Okay.
And we were done. I was
You're like,
no
we're
more
done
than 3.
after
No
this.
more
This
than
is
3.
good. Yeah, 3 kids. Hey, that's
Good
smart.
number.
3 kids is great. I
Yeah.
think so too.
Exactly. So Mac would have been number 3.
Okay. Okay. So, do you mind sharing the story with us about what happened?
Jump right in.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So number 3, we got pregnant. We looked at the due date. It was going to be December, right? Right at Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Right at Christmas. And first off,
Really?
I felt bad for the baby, and I was like, Christmas birthdays, that kind of sucks. I know people with Christmas birthdays or around Christmas, and they don't like it. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of sucks for this child, but it is what it is. Can't change it. And so, but Jordan decided she wanted to do a home birth. Hire a midwife and do a home birth. And so her reasoning for the home birth, because her past medical history would say that she's too high risk for a home birth, but she wanted to try. And so, because she had a VBAC with our child and she had a C-section with her
first child.
which would make our second child a VBAC, obviously. But
Okay.
but her first one, she had a blood transfusion
Okay.
during her birth or during the C-section. And so her medical history was too high risk. She knew that, but she was recommended this midwife, and I'll drop her name right now, Sarah Kankowitz of Firefly Birth Services, which has been now changed to Wild Birth Services down in Arizona. But Sarah came recommended to Jordan by a friend that used her who had a good experience. Jordan was one that is known to dive deep into research, into crossing her T's, dotting her I's, Excuse me. And yeah, so she talked to her a lot and decided, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it, because Sarah advertised herself as, I am a specialist in doing a VBAC at home. I'm a specialist in that. And so in hindsight, I like to say that she kind of sold us a dream.
Well, yeah, because she hired her because she's like, oh, she does exactly what I'm looking for.
Bingo. Exactly.
So why wouldn't I hire her? That's what
yeah,
I'm
it's like,
looking
oh, this is
for.
possible.
Yeah.
This is
Yes.
possible. Like, I
Yeah.
know I'm high risk, but this is
This
possible.
is possible.
And it was, oh, of course it's
She
possible.
made her
Let's
dream more of a dream. Like, oh, this
Exactly.
could come true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she was probably the only midwife in Phoenix that travels 2.5 hours
Okay.
to these small rural towns. She posted a post on Instagram that said, quote unquote, I love to travel to these podunk towns.
Oh,
Okay.
podunk.
Right.
Okay.
Right on. That doesn't sit well with us
Those
who
are the
live in a
funnest
small
towns
town.
to live in. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I like the podunk. Yeah, exactly. Good choice of words.
Yeah.
But yeah, so excuse me. But we sat down and like, do you have water by chance?
So jumping back in,
Yeah, we were
talking about your podunk town.
Oh, yep.
yeah,
Podunk.
Podunk Town, according to Sarah Kankowitz. But yeah, so she would come for prenatal visits. And like one of the first few visits, after her and Jordan were done talking, Jordan had left, and I asked her, I said, okay, I have concerns. And she like propped up, and she's like, oh, let's hear him. And so, because she was, I say it that way, she was very, I want to say, kind of arrogant to her midwifery. Would constantly bash hospitals and tell them how they didn't handle births right and how they intervened too much, and consistently bashed by name the OBGYN at the hospital, and saying how terrible the sutures he was for C-sections, and it was terrible. I hated it.
She's like name dropping people
Oh,
in her
name
interview
dropping.
and stuff.
Yeah, and these 2-3 hour prenatal visits, majority of them were just
Okay.
gossiping and bashing the hospitals. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go back to work. Or I worked remotely at the time. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go
Yeah.
do work.
That's
I'd rather
hard, man.
Yeah.
do work than listen to this lady bash a hospital for no reason. Anyway,
Well, I'm not going to imagine. You have your wife who wants to do this thing, and you want to be supportive.
Yes.
But I would imagine there's also. I mean, you mentioned before there were some concerns that you had.
Mhm.
Did you let her know some of those concerns?
Yeah. So my overarching educated concern, because I was not educated with
Yeah.
any of the birth anything.
Yeah.
I heard uterine rupture, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess that can happen. I didn't know
What that was. Like,
what,
Yeah.
how fast you have to act on it and what it can cause and
Okay.
everything. And, but I brought up my concerns, and I was like, hey, first off, in my male brain, I see two options to get the same result. I'm going to go this less riskier one. That's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
But that's not what was wanted, because Jordan wanted one. She wanted the memory of delivering a baby underneath a Christmas tree, and it was our last baby, and it was just kind of a magical moment that she wanted to have.
Well,
Yeah.
and the midwife thing has grown to be more of a popular decision than it ever has been.
Right.
In the days that we're living in now.
Right.
A lot of people have home births now.
Yes.
A lot. This is not a normal thing.
It's not
now,
uncommon.
It's not uncommon anymore.
Right.
So
Right. And I think it's something big to bring up too, which we'll get to, I think, a little later, is, well, I'll use the word trendy.
yeah.
It's trendy.
Yes.
It's popular.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
just because it's trendy
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's not serious.
Yeah. I want to see if I'm tough enough to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which in my brain, not worth it.
Yes.
Not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which you will find out later. Or my camera. So basically, she wanted to do the Christmas delivery. She wanted to have a sense of more control over her birth and labor at home, and be comfortable in her own home. But two, she wanted to be a midwife herself. So because Jordan was a RN.
Oh, okay.
at
That's
the
really cool.
at the emergency room there, but she was cross training in the OB at the hospital. She had worked in the NICU at another hospital, so she was like educated.
So she's educated.
She was passionate about babies, passionate about
okay.
delivering babies, and
Yeah.
breastfeeding and everything.
So I can
Makes
see
sense.
how you're
So-
supporting her and taking her lead on this because she is very well educated with her medical health side.
Right. It's just like if
Yeah.
I wanted to become a professional golfer, she would be
Exactly.
following me and trusting what I
Exactly.
say.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so she wanted that. She wanted to, because Safford didn't have any midwives, didn't have any lactation consultants. And so she wanted to become a midwife and a lactation consultant and kind of be an all-in-one system to help, Safford that didn't have any of those conveniences.
That's really cool.
Yeah, she wanted to give back a
Yeah,
little
I
bit.
love
And she was
that.
passionate about it. It's what she
Yeah.
loved. And so, but going into it, I sat down with Sarah and I had asked her, like, hey, what's your plan of action? Because emergencies happen. We're talking about a slim percentage, but I'm like, what if there is an emergency? And oddly enough, I actually explained the exact situation and scenario that ended up happening.
Okay.
And so, but I mentioned before, Sarah sold us a dream, and she gave me everything I wanted to hear. She was like, EMS is going to understand that we're doing a home birth. I'm not here to deliver a baby. I'm here to watch for the health of mom and baby. I'm here to look for red flags. If there are red flags, I call the ambulance. We get you to the hospital. We finish there. She said, I've done it before. I'm not afraid to do it again. Giving me everything as a husband that you would want to hear.
So they let EMS know
That's what she said.
beforehand? Is that a thing?
I believe you're supposed to.
Okay.
Mhm.
I didn't know that. Which makes sense.
Or maybe not EMS, maybe the hospital.
Okay.
They notify
you let
somebody.
know that like the home birth is going to happen just in case there's an emergency. We might call you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so she told me all that, and I was like, all
Okay.
right, you are here. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You are here to
Exactly, yeah.
protect my family.
Yep.
Because I'm hiring you to do that.
Mhm.
Right? So that I don't have to worry about being the doctor
The worst
here
of the
or
worst. Yeah.
I, in fact, because you're here, I can actually fully focus on
Yep.
helping
On
Jordan get
Yeah.
through this, because it's unmedicated, it's uncomfortable, it's painful, and sweet. I can take off my protector hat
Yep.
and I can put on my supporter hat.
Yeah.
Learn that in therapy afterwards.
Look at
Oh,
that.
I love
Look at
that. That's really good.
But yeah, and so everything was going well. And then I guess just fast forward, because same thing. Every prenatal visit was just kind of the same.
Same.
To
Yeah.
be honest, I would sit in my office and I'd be working, and I'd leave my door cracked, and then when
You
I'd
could
hear
just
like
hear
the
it.
heartbeat, her start taking the heartbeat, I'd stop everything and run out there and
Aw.
kneel next to Jordan and hear the heartbeat of Mac and everything
That's
like
cute.
that. So that's definitely a memory I'll keep. But yeah, fast forward, it's December. We're super excited because we know like within a couple weeks this baby's coming, and here we go, everything that we've been preparing for. And Jordan was, like I said, crossing her T's, dotting her I's. She even was going to therapy to get her mind right.
Aw.
Like, so that she was like
Yeah.
all prepared and
her.
whatnot. She was a rock
You
star.
want to be
during this.
mentally ready for that pain. You got
Yeah.
to be ready
Exactly.
for that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Good for her.
But yeah, so December 17th of 2023 she goes into labor at 3:30 a.m.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't wake me up, thankfully, until 6. She let me sleep a little bit. And so, she wakes me up at 6. She took a video of it,
Cute.
of her waking me up, and I'm half asleep. Just saying, oh, no way. Are you really?
No, really?
Really? What do we do? What do we do? And then I woke up and I was like, okay, I actually know what we need to do, because we've talked about it a
Done
million
this time.
times.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, the labor was perfect. It was, we were filling up a bathtub, and she was sitting in the bathtub, getting her in her comfy pajamas, and she was laying in bed, and I'm, making breakfast for her and the kids, and she's walking around, she's going outside, she's
handling it
she's
like
grounding
a champ.
herself.
Good
Like,
for
yeah,
her.
she was killing it.
prepared.
She
And
was
you can see
prepared.
why that's really like this desirable thing. Right? You're not in
Yes.
this sterile
Yeah.
environment, all these beeping machines, all these
Yeah.
sick
Uh-huh.
people, right? Yeah.
You see the beauty in having the home birth, like
Sure.
being with your families, making the kids are involved. Like
Mhm.
that is really like there's a beauty to that.
There
Yeah.
is a beauty
Yeah.
if it makes sense.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah.
If
Sure.
it makes sense.
You can
Yeah.
see the
And so-
draw is what.
Yeah.
100%.
I guess the
Yeah.
draw. That's a good
100%.
way to say
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, we labored, and yeah, and then going from that very comfortable labor, then I filled up the birthing pool, right where she wanted it in the living room, right by the Christmas tree.
Aw. Is the
Um,
midwife there yet?
She's not there yet.
Okay.
No,
Has she been contacted?
we're gonna get to that.
Okay.
This is where it gets
'Kay.
juicy, and honestly, fucking ridiculous. But so, yeah, so we get the birthing pool ready. We get the kids. We were gonna keep them there, but it was kind of a joint decision of like, let's send them to mom's,
Yeah.
to her mom's house. And that was actually, looking back, it's like that decision was one of it's our last decision that we ever made together.
Mm.
Wow.
And it frankly like helped us like protect our kids.
Yeah.
The,
yeah.
the trauma that ensued
Yeah.
That's heavy, man.
afterwards. So yeah, that was like one of the better decisions I've ever made, and it protected them.
Yeah.
But anyway, whew,
There's a lot to wrestle with there, huh?
yes, there is.
How do you do that?
I
What do
don't
you
know.
do to wrestle with it? Obviously, you can't make sense of it, but
No, I can't really.
you hold yourself together. It seems quite well, and there's this huge
Yeah.
conflict, right? Like you can see it.
Yeah, no, I'm telling the story, and I'm
And
literally
you're there.
visualizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You can feel it all over again.
But what is it that
Yeah.
you do to continue to hold yourself together?
my kids,
That's beautiful.
my kids, and we can get dark here for a little bit, but I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for my kids.
The amount of times I've heard that, man.
Our-
That's remarkable. That's incredible that you do that.
Yeah.
Because I can only imagine the
admit
pain
it.
that you went through in this whole thing.
I'll admit it, man. There was one time I was in my bed afterwards and just laying there and just dark.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, there's a gun right there. I miss her. I
Yeah.
can go see Jordan because I'm a believer in the afterlife and everything.
Sure.
And I was like, I miss her. I can go see her right now. And I just sat there and it was like the room just started spinning.
It's a scary moment.
Yeah. And I was
Been
like,
there.
nope. Because the first thing I thought of was like, oh, my son Luke, what happens when he, hears a bang or like, doesn't or comes in the morning and he's the one that finds me.
Finds you.
And what's he going to do? He doesn't know how to use the phone. He doesn't know. He's just going to sit there and cry.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got up and flipped on all the lights and
Good for
It's a
you.
huge
walked
question,
around
man.
and flipped on the PlayStation, played some video games for a
But
little
that-
bit and just kind of reset. And it was
That
sad.
question of, because we all have these dark moments in our lives where
Yeah.
it feels completely hopeless.
Mhm.
But that moment where I ask myself, instead of why stay, I enter into the realm of hope, and I can now find a little smidge, a little light at the end of the tunnel, and just go, okay, there's a reason to stay. That's all it takes.
That's all it takes.
Yep.
And that's beautiful that you found that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
It
it
is.
makes me, in fact, me and my brother Zach were talking about this. And we were like, dude, the individuals that go through with it with children is the saddest thing this world can
Yeah,
ever
it's
see,
really
because it's
tragic.
like, I felt it
Yeah.
and my child stopped me.
Yeah.
The depths of darkness that person has to be in,
Yeah.
that their children can't even stop them.
Yeah.
That's just sad.
It makes you understand
Holy
suicide
crap.
a little bit better, don't you feel?
Oh,
Being like having that own experience and realizing like, oh, I see how people can actually really do this.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Yeah.
That's the
Oh, yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But you just have to find that
Find
one
that
thing,
Teeny tiny piece
that
of hope.
teeny little
Mhm.
thing.
It's good you had that, man.
So,
So you and
But-
your wife make this final decision that you make together
Yeah.
to let the kids.
sorry, how we got off track.
Oh
Go to-
no,
no,
you're good. We took a break
I
No, you're
derailed
good.
it
for a minute.
no, you're
on
good.
we wanted
purpose to
Yeah.
come back,
Yeah.
and now
Yeah.
we'll get back into the story, right? So the kids leave,
Yep.
and you and Jordan are there. It's just you two.
Yeah, so it's just us two. It's about 8 a.m. at this point. Yeah, about 8 a.m. Or I should say, I don't know when we sent the kids to her mom's house, but 8 a.m. I texted the midwife because she lived up in the Phoenix Valley.
Oh, that's right.
And-
She had to drive.
She had to drive.
Yes.
But the whole time she said, whenever you're ready, let me know and I'll be there. I'll leave right then. And I'm like, okay, sweet. So obviously give her a little buffer, not, call her, hey, baby's going to be here in 20 minutes.
yeah.
Hey, we're, I'm filling up the birthing pool. Let's have you start, heading here. So I texted her at 8 and told her leave within the hour.
Okay.
And she says, okay, cool. And then 9:30, she says, "Hey, how's everything going? Do you need me to leave?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I told you to leave within the hour." So yeah, head on,
Yeah.
get here.
Get here now. Yeah.
So she used the term, "Okay, I'll start to mosey on down. No urgency."
Right.
And said, "I got to stop at the post office and send off some birth certificates first, and then I'll start heading your way."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "What do you mean?"
You're like, we're about to have a baby here.
Yeah,
Like, maybe
I'm
get
hiring
here.
you. Yeah, like,
Well, and there's an
what's going
urgency
on?
when you're having a baby. There's just like this, like, oh my gosh, we're having a baby, you know? And so
Yeah.
when you and Jordan are in that, and then the person you hired to be a part of that is like, just, oh, I'll get there when I get there.
"Yeah, I'm gonna run some errands
You're
real
like, wait,
quick.
what?
Go feed the horses." Like,
It's infuriating.
yeah,
No,
it's
it
infuriating.
is. Yeah.
And so, so I'm like, yeah,
Get there.
come on,
Mhm.
let's go. And so about an hour or so later, she texts me and says, "Hey, I'm going to send I can't remember how she worded her. Come to find out, she's not a doula. This other person, not a doula. She's not certified anywhere to be in a birthing space. Like,
Hmm.
she just likes to be in birthing spaces. And
Hmm.
she's Sarah's friend. So she's like kind of local and said, "Hey, Sarah's, Kendra's going to be here. She's going to go to your house too." And I'm like, I've never heard her name in my life. Never met her in my life.
So it's the first time you've heard about her.
First time
when
she
your
knocks on the door, I was
wife
like,
is in labor.
"Hi, cool,
Huh.
nice to meet you.
Come on in, I
Yeah,
guess.
come on in my home where
Yeah.
my wife is completely naked."
Yeah.
And she knew Jordan from high school, but they had kept in contact after that.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I guess, come on in. So that was about like 11:30. And we asked Kendra, I'm like, "Hey, Jordan wants to, have her dilation check. Can you do that?" And knowing now that she didn't have the skills to do that, but
Mhm.
what she said was, "Oh, I'm not well equipped." And she's like, "I'm not well equipped." I'm like, "Yeah, me neither. I have no idea what I'd be looking for, so
Yeah.
I can't do it." She goes, "No, I just had my nails done for a Christmas party and they're too sharp." And I'm like, "Oh, okay,
Bizarre.
sweet. So
Yeah.
I guess have a seat here and
Yeah.
watch with
I
me."
guess just hang out.
Yeah, that's
with
kinda what
this
it was.
Intimate moment with me and my
Weird.
wife. Sure. Mhm.
Weird.
Yeah.
That's strange.
That is
The
very
whole thing is
strange.
just full of strange oddities
Yeah.
that were just
It does
kind of
not
making me like,
fit
what's
this-
going on?
This
And I'm trusting Jordan. I'm like, maybe you guys this is
Like
normal
they
for
worked
your
it
home
out or
birth,
something. Yeah.
your home birth thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is weird.
wow.
So anyway, it took Sarah 6 hours to get to my house.
What time did she get there?
2.
Oh, so the other girl was there at 11 and then she doesn't get there till 2?
Right.
Okay.
So Sarah pops in. I was like, oh, thank God. Like, finally we get to
Gonna
get to
somewhere.
business.
Yeah.
And the next oddity happens where she kneels down and Sarah just goes, "Hey," I told Sarah, I was like, "Hey, she wants to have her dilation check to see where she's measuring." And Sarah just goes, "Okay, Jordan, would you like me to check your dilation?" And Jordan's like, "Not right now. I'm in a good spot. I'm in a comfortable spot." She goes, "Oh, okay, cool." And then never offered again. Right?
So she didn't check her when she got there to see where she was
No,
possibly at.
Didn't check vitals, didn't check blood pressure, didn't check oxygen, no baseline to even go off of.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this whole time from 2:00 to 5:30, so about 3.5 hours. I mean, Jordan, she's pushing. There's progress, and I notice right before progress just kind of stopped, and everything just kind of plateaued, which I've learned the medical term is called destationing,
Okay.
which is a huge symptom of a uterine rupture.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So right before she plateaued her progress of pushing, I noticed color in Jordan's face started to lose color. She started to go a little bit white.
Okay.
And I looked at Sarah and I was very quiet about it because I didn't want to freak Jordan out. And so, but I looked at Sarah and I got her attention, kind of went, face is kind of white. And Sarah just goes, "Oh, she's doing okay." And that was it. She said, "Oh, she's doing okay." And I was like, okay, I guess you're the midwife. Like, you've done this.
Well, yeah, you
This is
hired
getting
the
weird.
expert, to come
okay.
in. You're like,
You're
okay,
here to look for the health and
there's
safety.
trust in this person. There's full on
Yeah,
trust, and like you
exactly.
said, you took off the protector
Yeah.
hat and you gave it to her. She's the one protecting your
Right.
family now.
Right. So I'm like, okay. And then, color goes back to her face. I was like, okay, maybe that was just kind of a freak thing. But we're still plateaued. And I started thinking that's weird. I'm like, you don't just
Stop laboring.
Laboring, yeah.
Yeah.
you don't
wild.
the baby's not in the birth canal. It just
Yeah.
doesn't stop.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. Yeah.
Right? Like
You'd think.
you'd think.
Yeah.
I'm not even a medical pro. I'm not even a medical anything. And I'm like, that's a little weird.
Yeah.
So a little bit later, and Jordan's, throughout her birth, she did say that she wanted to go to the hospital. And Sarah basically was just like, no, you got it. You got this. You got this. Denying to go to the hospital. And Jordan debriefed me beforehand. And she's like, hey, I'm going to want to quit. I'm going to want to quit, but don't let me. She goes, I need you there to, be cheek to cheek with me, to be right up there by my ear and giving me the affirmations, reminding me why I want a home birth.
She wanted you to be her cheerleader.
Yeah, and I was the
Yeah,
cheerleader,
cheer
and I
on.
was like, well, that's, what if there's an issue? And we both realized, like, oh, that's why Sarah's there.
Yeah.
Is because
She's
if there
gonna be
is
the
an
one.
issue, it's her.
That's her job.
She's going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm okay taking those hats
Yes.
off and being just right here. So when she's telling me I want to go to the hospital, I'm like, you got this. You got this. You want to quit. I know it's hard. It's hard. And giving her the affirmations.
Mhm.
But Sarah's doing the same damn thing.
Mm.
Like, what's the point of you being there?
Yeah.
Anyway, a little bit later, I noticed that Jordan, she went to pick herself up and her elbow gave out. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay. And then I watched for, a couple minutes more, and I started seeing the same thing. Her color started going away and her lips started turning blue. And she's like right there in front of me, and I was getting freaked out a little bit, and I looked at her eyes and they were starting to get spacey and rolling a little bit. And mind you, the last time that she lost her color in her face, we had a videographer there recording this whole thing. I have straight up video of
Okay.
all of this stuff happening that I've rewatched to make sure I wasn't crazy. But yeah, so eyes start rolling and whatnot, and I tell her to, look at my eyes, and she does, but then she just kind of falls down and just kind of like leans up on the pool next to me. And that's when I looked up at Sarah and Kendra, and Kendra points to her lip to Sarah and says, hey, do you see that? Pointing to the blue lips. And Sarah just shakes her head yes, and then just goes back to the birth. And I'm like, you guys see it then?
Yeah.
I'm like, I see
Yeah.
it too. You guys see it. Like, maybe we need to do something. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. When do we intervene?
Yeah. When
At what
do you
point?
intervene?
At what point?
Yeah. And so there was still no blood pressure checks. There was no vitals ever checked during this whole entire thing.
Does she even have a cuff on? Nothing?
No cuff on. Even like, hey,
Did
losing
she even have like a heart monitor for the?
nothing.
Hmm.
So I positioned myself over to where, Kendra was. And I was like, hey, you see that, right? She goes, yeah, I saw that. And I said, okay, we see the color? And they were like, yeah. And their response to that was, this pisses me off every time I think about it. They said, her blood sugar's low. Just go get her a spoonful of honey and have her eat it. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. Okay, but I will.
I didn't know you could eat during labor.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not an
Yeah.
expert.
I mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
I
an
don't
expert, but
pretend
I
to
just
understand
remember they're
anything.
like, you can't eat
Yeah.
anything, even when I came to the hospital. Can't eat anything.
Honey. Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
so I went and thinking it was the weirdest thing in the world. I tried to give Jordan
it
a
to her.
spoonful of honey, and she kind of yelled at me and was like, I don't want it. And I kind of glanced up at Sarah after she, said she didn't want it. I glanced up at her and she, shrugged her shoulders and giggled. Did that, and I'm like,
What do I do?
what do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean, haha? Like,
Yeah.
this is insane. And so that's when I went into the kitchen and I kind of just sat there and I was getting pissed.
Oh man.
Talk about
I was
helplessness.
to say, and all
helplessness.
alone.
I was helpless.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
And so I was getting pissed off.
What's
and
going through your head in that kitchen?
I'm thinking how nobody's taking me serious.
Mm.
Almost like I know what I'm seeing, but you guys are making me feel dumb.
And you just want,
And I'm just helpless.
but what is it that you want them to do?
It's about that time is when I started seeing things were going south.
Okay.
And so I'm like, let's do something.
You want them to do something.
Just
Anything.
something.
Yeah.
Something. Even just
Yeah.
put a cuff on her to check her blood pressure. Something.
Sure.
Or even just say something.
Say something.
The
Instead of
like,
dismiss me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was, that was the word. I was just helpless at that point.
Yeah.
But I was in the kitchen and I was like, okay, gather everything, gather my emotions. I need to be there for Jordan.
Yep.
Took some deep breaths and I was like, okay, here we go. That's when I walked in, and not too long after that is when I started they started showing some urgency. And like I said, it wasn't too long after that Jordan basically said, she kept saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And so ended up being Jordan's last coherent words that she ever said was, looked at Sarah and said, call them. And Sarah's like, call the ambulance. And she's like, yeah. And so Sarah goes, okay, let's go. So the Sarah lady made Jordan make the decision to call the ambulance. Someone who's in labor, someone who's giving birth, someone who's already had a uterine rupture that you have no idea of, no idea about, and is, internally bleeding. She's the one that had to call the ambulance. And so, yeah, they call the ambulance, and Jordan's words started getting slurred, and she kind of turned around and leaned up against it, and she started staring, directly across the room, and she just lost consciousness right there. And I freaked out, and I put my fingers on her pulse like I'm some doctor or EMT, or I'm just freaking out. I just want to
Yeah.
Just
do
wanna know
something.
something.
Just something.
Yeah. Your protector mode probably came back
That's
on.
when
Like, here we go. I'm going to
that's when
protect
it-
my family.
That's when it came
You ain't
on.
doing shit. I'm
That's
stepping
exactly
in.
what it was. Is I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
move over.
Yeah.
So I was trying to feel her pulse. I think I felt it, and Sarah is sitting behind me, and she just goes, "How's her pulse, Dad?" I was like, "I don't know." And she goes, "But it's okay. Hey, it's okay. She's just going into shock," is what she said. Super calm. She's just going into shock. And I'm like, "That's not good. She's unconscious right now,
Yeah. While you're in labor.
in labor with my baby
Yeah.
still inside."
Yeah. And yeah.
And so, yeah, basically I start freaking out. I start crying and doing that. And I kind of looked over at the videographer and I was like, you should probably
Cut it
go.
off.
You don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, cut it. Pack it up. You don't need to see what's going to be going on, because I had a feeling where we were.
Oh, no.
So that's when, I jumped up. Because Sarah then jumped in and she finally started intervening. Finally, after 3 hours, and an unconscious person started to intervene. I jumped up, and knowing that we were going to the hospital, I started packing my bag real quick. And it was in the room. That's when I heard, because the EMTs were on the phone dispatch.
Yeah.
And that's when I heard that Sarah say that she was starting CPR. I was in my room. Yeah, because they pulled Jordan out of the birthing pool and dropped her. I want to point that out. Dropped her.
Sure.
She slipped out of their hands and she fell on the back of her head. But yeah, that's when I heard in the room they were starting CPR. And I remember, and I talked in my therapy, I really dove deep into this. We had our mirror on the wall, and I remember just looking into the mirror and just thinking, like, looking at myself, knowing that CPR is going on my wife in the living room. And I'm just like, what did we just do? And I realized what I was really talking about is, what did we just do to our kids? Like, not even me. I know I'm a grown man. I can,
Yeah.
hopefully get through this. But what did we just do to our babies? But protector mode quick, went in there and I said, we got to do something. And so, ran in there and we've learned that the dispatch messed up on their transferring and sent the ambulance to the wrong place, wrong side of town. And so we were waiting on the ambulance for about 20 minutes.
Oh my
And the hospital's 5 minutes away from us.
Oh gosh.
And so I thought, we can't wait anymore.
This is like Murphy's,
Yeah,
Murphy's Law, man. Just
Yeah.
what can
Yeah.
go wrong will go wrong. Over
Yeah.
Everything
and
went
over and
wrong.
over and
Yeah.
over.
And like I said, the protector roll went in and I went in the room, or I went in the garage, opened our SUV trunk and opened up the front door and said, we're going to the hospital. We're not waiting on him.
Good.
And I had to pick her body up and put her in the back of my car, and the midwife jumped back there, and luckily the police rolled in from the 911 call, and basically we went about 75 miles an hour to the hospital with a police escort, and tires screeching into the ambulance or in the ambulance bay. And probably one of the sadder things I've ever seen was all the nurses. Because those are her friends, her coworkers. And the whole hospital was emptied out waiting for my car.
Because they know her.
They know her.
They heard on the radio and they knew it was her. And so, so I flew in there and opened up the trunk, and there she was, and they pulled her out of the gurney and continued CPR. And I mean, the police were there, all the nurses, the entire hospital was emptied out. And nurses, I mean, they were crying, everyone's freaking out. And so they pulled her into the trauma room, and that's when they pulled Mac out and did a C-section there.
Okay.
And pulled Mac out, and he was technically a stillborn at the time. They couldn't resuscitate him. And so I they came out and let me know, and I went in the hospital, and got to hold my baby, and I mean, he was perfect. There was not a defect on him. He was 9 pounds 4 ounces.
Aw.
Good boy.
He's a big boy, and I got to hold him for about 30 minutes, and then had to basically hand him over after there, because I knew I had my wife to take care of, because she had a heartbeat.
Okay.
She had a heartbeat in the hospital, but she was hooked up to the machines. It was the machines keeping her alive.
Oh, okay.
So
What was that moment like? You hand over this. You're supposed to take care of this kiddo your whole life, and then you hand it over. Like, that's brutal.
brutal. I mean, this.
How do you
my
even
baby.
make sense of something
You
like
can't.
that?
You can't make sense of it. But luckily it was, I had my in-laws there. Jordan's best
support.
friends were
You had
there,
people.
and so they were each having turns with Mac, and so that kind of gave me comfort
Aw.
knowing that
You weren't alone anymore.
I wasn't alone. I wasn't helpless.
You're with the people.
I had people taking care
care-
people
when
taking
they
care of her,
cared
and
for Jordan.
nurses
They knew
and
her.
friends.
Yeah.
And I finally felt people, not helpless anymore.
Yeah.
People were taking care of me, taking care of my family. And so, but I got to go in the trauma room while, Jordan was being worked on, and I got to kind of sit by her for a little bit. But at the same time, it was the weirdest thing, because she's, hooked up to machines. They're working on her, and I look around, and it's all of our friends
Ugh.
working on her. It was weird.
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's
bet that's
it was
weird.
weird.
Yeah.
surreal. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, we've had game nights.
I was gonna say
with
people
these,
you've hung
with
out
these
with at your
nurses, and
home, and share
Exactly, and our
drinks with,
kids,
and
yeah.
conversations.
Our kids know their kids, and vice versa, and here they are, and I'm watching them work, and I'm like, this is not right. This is so wrong. But I remember stepping out of the trauma room and seeing the state that Jordan was in deep down. And I think I told my mom and dad over the phone when they asked like what's going on, I remember telling him, I'm like, looking at what she's in, I don't think she's making it through this. And so, but because they couldn't stop the bleeding. So basically it was a uterine rupture.
Okay.
Uterine rupture, massive internal bleeding because it went on for so long. And then it just resulted in hemorrhagic shock.
And that's why she kept saying she's going in shock. So she was bleeding at home then.
Who knows how long, but from the destationing, the plateauing, it had been
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah.
It had been a while. And that's what resulted in Max passing
Not
as well.
making it.
Yeah.
Because
So
he didn't get enough
Oxygen.
oxygen because or what?
yeah, there's no
There's no.
no source of oxygen to Mac. And so he basically
Because the uterus erupted, and so there's fluid and blood going
Yeah,
in there.
and the
instead of
placenta
protecting him.
detaches.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
placenta detaches, and when the placenta detaches, there's nothing for the baby.
That's why you got to get them through the birth canal.
Exactly. And so, but we had to fly down to Tucson because
Oh, okay.
we had to transfer down to
So
Tucson.
they flew her to
And so,
Tucson.
yeah, she
Okay.
got flown down there, and we drove there, and we tried a whole bunch of different things to stop her bleeding, to save her, but literally after trying everything, there just wasn't anything. And so
I'm so sorry.
the next day we basically had to say goodbye. And so, but her whole family, all of her extended family, her friends, my family, as soon as they heard what was happening, they didn't even wait for an airline.
He drove down.
They got in the car.
Mhm.
They got in the car and they drove from Salt Lake to Tucson overnight with no stops. And so they showed up and they were there for me. And that's what, yeah. That's when I felt the most support. Felt support with her family, but being at the hospital and seeing my giant family, literally, not just
No, they
number
are
wise,
giant.
but
Yeah, they're all very
we're all
tall.
tall and
Tall,
well
strong.
over 6 foot. And they walked around the corner. My little mom was right in the middle of them. I just knew that like 5,000 was going to get taken care of. Helpless. So, yeah, so they stayed there for about a week at my house, actually. And then did our funeral. And yeah,
Oh, I'm so sorry, Parker.
it's just me and my boy. Because my stepdaughter had to go with her dad too.
So then you lost.
I lost her too.
Lost her too.
Wow.
Oh,
Luckily, I could keep in contact with her. But
Oh, it breaks my heart, man.
yeah, my family went from, well, it was supposed to go to 5 down to 2.
oh.
So,
And now you're back here in Utah, correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
your whole life just went flipped upside
every
down.
aspect,
Yep.
every aspect, just where I live, my family life, my responsibilities in the home, everything was, I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. It's been
Again,
almost 6 months.
helpless.
Helpless.
Yeah.
I mean,
But that's why I moved to Utah, is because my family's up
because you
here.
need help.
I need help.
We can't
But
do it alone.
I need help.
Well, and this human thing, life, right? We lie to ourselves a lot about
Yeah.
how much control we think we have.
Yeah.
And thank God we can lie to ourselves that way, because if
It's for survival, right?
and you gotta take risks,
Yeah.
right? Because you take risks because you want to have experiences. And so you take this big risk because you want to have this beautiful experience. You see the draw of it. You see
Yeah.
the,
Oh, yeah.
and,
sure.
and you ask for help from trusted people, and you're hoping, right?
Hoping.
Hoping.
that expecting
Yeah.
that things will go the way that you've been told, or that you can trust it. But what ends up happening again and again and again in life is we go to these experiences having this expectation, this idea of how it's supposed to go, and then it just goes completely awry, and then we're left in the aftermath to deal with the feeling of just complete helplessness.
Right.
And we have to try to make sense of it. But what in your story, which is harrowing, man, and it breaks my damn heart, dude. Like, lost your wife and your kid and your stepdaughter. Like, I can only imagine how you're just reeling over this, and it'll take
My entire life.
a lifetime,
Yeah.
a lifetime to. Yeah, you can't really deal with it. You just this will be something that you just have forever, and you got to figure out what it means to you now, right?
Right.
That's the point. But what ends up happening in response to helplessness, a lot that you talked about for a brief moment, when you heard them doing CPR, and you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, "Do you remember what you said? You
What
said,
did we do?
What did we do?" This is such a common thing that people do in moments of helplessness.
Mhm.
We have no other options, it would seem. And my subconscious brain, this thing that's in the back of my mind that runs my survival, right, says to me some variation of, you had a part to play in this. It's kind of your fault. What did we do?
Yeah.
That is such a normal, common thing that people do all the time. But the reality of this situation is we didn't do anything.
Right.
Right? Like, we didn't do this. We didn't choose this. I didn't cause this. This isn't my fault. This is just fucking life. And sometimes it's horrible.
Sometimes it's horrible.
And that is
And
what,
sometimes people let you down.
sure. And that is what we are helpless to.
Mhm.
And it's learning to accept that we are helpless to that actually clues us into what we can actually do about our situation, which is rely on people we love and ask for help and try to do this thing together rather than separate.
Yeah.
And that's where you found relief, right? In your story, they come in and you see your family and you find this relief. Like, I don't feel so helpless anymore because I have my people.
Yeah. I had to stand up tall.
Yeah.
And, I remember in the waiting room to my in-laws and whatnot, I was checking on them. Hey, are you guys doing okay?
Yeah.
Are you guys doing
Yeah.
okay? Because I was still trying to,
Yeah.
keep sense and keep the situation together.
Protecting, yeah.
And then seeing
your family,
my
from
family who's been there for
your
my whole life. I mean, since birth.
Sure.
Seeing them walk down the hall, it was like
Oh, I
I
can
went from like standing tall to just like I just
Oh,
melted.
Safety walked right
I
in
just
for you.
melted.
Yeah.
Oh.
That safety.
And that's the craziest thing too, is you bring up a good point, is the blame. What did we do?
What did we do?
And that's going while I've been in my grief therapy and figuring, making sense of everything. Is I was carrying a lot of like blame and guilt. Why
Always.
didn't I call 911?
Right.
Why didn't I call this home birth? I let this go too far. I didn't protect my family. I didn't live up to my role as a husband and a father.
Oh.
Like, that's what I was dealing with. And that's when I was given kind of that guidance of like, hold on, you're beating yourself up because you took off that hat and put on. And she was actually amazing of how she said it. She was like, you gave Jordan the best gift a husband can give a wife.
Yes.
And
you
that
did.
is pure support
Yep.
through something that she wants to do. No judgment, no anything. You're just there for her. And so
100%.
hearing that different perspective, it was like, oh, like, thank God, like, okay, maybe I didn't mess up as much as I thought, because I was carrying that. It took me
Sure.
Yeah.
Because when
it
we
took me 3 months to go to
Oh, yeah.
to go to therapy. So for 3 months I'm just carrying, and goes back
Blaming
to
myself.
And
Yeah.
ruminating
That
and
dark-
what could I have
ruminating.
done? And you're like Monday morning quarterbacking it every single moment of your
Yeah.
life. Like, I should have done that. I should have done
Yeah.
this. I should have done
Well,
that.
isn't it because us humans have to try and like make it make sense in our brain? Is that why we do that?
We're trying to make sense of the unmake sensible. Yes.
Yeah.
Because none of that makes sense.
Yeah.
None of it.
none
Yeah.
of it. There's nothing you can
There's
do to
not
prepare
one
for it.
moment-
You don't
Yes.
think it's going to happen to you.
No, there's not one
Yeah.
moment where you can go, oh, I can see why that happened. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Okay. No. The only thing that makes sense in any of this whole thing called life is that it's fucking horrific
Yeah.
and you have no idea what's going to happen. And you have very little control over anything.
Anything.
Yep.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And these horrible things, these tragedies that happen to us, they just remind us of that reality. And that feeling, man, it's brutal.
Right. It's given the outlook to life on, I mean, it's completely changed.
Yeah.
It's completely changed.
How so? Do you have any specifics around that? What
Yeah,
could we learn from you?
it's just knowing that, on my drive home, after I leave here on my drive home, I could get in a wreck and die.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
And so
So the stakes, you kind of understand the stakes better.
the stakes are better, but also living in the moment.
Yes, that.
Mm.
Living in the moment is
You don't take it for
critical
granted.
because I don't take it for granted anymore. There's so much I wish I would have lived in the moment more while Jordan was here.
Yeah.
And there's so much.
Yeah.
But I can't let that beat me up because
No, now it's
life
eat
is
you.
life.
Well,
It'll
now-
eat you
Because
alive if
you
let
can't
it.
change it.
You
I
can't
can't
change
control
you
it.
can't change it, but
But
now
you-
it's an opportunity for you
Yeah.
to live in the moment now and really like have that time with your son when you're with him, or
Yeah.
be here in this moment with us right now.
Yeah,
Right.
That's the choice element in tragedy,
Yeah.
right? If I go through a traumatic, tragic, unexpected, painful experience, the choice in that is that I can decide, what am I going to do with this thing?
Mhm.
It did happen, and the opportunity that some people, when you don't want to hear, like, this horrible, awful thing happened, now you have an opportunity. Not the thing that happened is the opportunity. You have an opportunity after this horrible, awful thing happened.
Mhm.
And your opportunity here is to make a choice.
You have a choice.
What are you going to do? And this is something that cripples people. It
Right.
destroys them because they go, I don't have a choice. I'm just going to do whatever thing that makes the feeling go away, the pain go away. And they keep doing that forever and just makes the pain stay.
Mhm.
And it doesn't transmute the pain. It
And
doesn't
it's
take
so
it.
hard.
It's so hard to take that
Yeah.
pain because you're fucking pissed and this lady did this thing and you feel wronged, I would imagine.
Oh,
I
for
feel wronged
sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah.
And you have all this stuff and you're like, what do I do with it?
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's hard. And it's like living in the moment. It's easier said than done.
Oh,
Definitely.
Because in my situation, one thing I've noticed is, live in the moment, because I'm trying to be there for my little boy
Mhm.
in every aspect. But there's also still things I got to do. So I'm like
Yeah.
in this battle of like, hey, I got business to attend to, but
Yeah.
I want to play with, cars and trains
Mhm.
with you. And I catch myself like, hey, no, I have things I need to do. And I'm
Yeah.
like, but that's most important. But I also have this. So it's this constant juggle
Oh.
act. And then not only that, but trying to cope and get past this
Through,
situation, get
Yeah.
with. I find myself like, well, if I stay busy, then I'm good. Well, then I get too busy and I get overwhelmed with all the things I need to
Right.
do. So I need to scale this back.
Mhm.
'Cause I'm not really living in the moment, but also I'm just overwhelmed. So I scale it back. And then when I don't have as much to do, then I sit there and I start hurting because
Yeah.
now I have the capacity in my brain to start going back to that situation, how much I miss her and how much I wish that Mac and Luke would have, and Ava would have been able to, have a childhood together and watch them grow. And then I start hurting there and I'm like, okay, better get busy again. So now I'm back at being, and so it's just this huge pull.
Wow.
It's wild.
Wow.
It's wild. And it's 6 months. And
Yeah, you're only 6 months out.
And 6 months is a long time, but
Yeah.
That awareness, though,
people
man.
outside, if you're looking at it from outside in, it's like it's been 6 months. Like you don't have a handle. It's no, I haven't gotten that.
I was like,
I'm just
I
talking.
hope not.
No, nobody said that to me.
You tell me and I'll take them out myself.
Yeah, right. But it's like it's 6
People
months.
don't
Yeah.
say it
is
with their
not
words, but
words.
they
It's a
say it
long
with
time.
their
With the
actions.
For sure. For sure.
Yes.
For sure, people
Yes.
do. There's
No, I am-
very arrogant people out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to. That's where I'm at right now. Is
Yeah. Where are you
well,
at
I was
right now?
here, when Jordan and I got dropped down to here. So far, I'm about right here. I'm still trying to figure out like get back to normal, get back to my normal self, and
Well, new normal,
then
right?
my new normal. But
Yeah.
I'm at the same time where I'm like, am I ever going to be that my normal self of who I used to be? And I don't think so. And that's
Can't.
you can't do it. And so
That's
so many
yet another
balls
thing.
to juggle.
Well,
Well-
it's like a version of you has died. So you
I
even
went
have
with
to
it, yeah.
grief that version
went
of
with
you. And now this new version of you is like stepping in this role. And when we're stepping in a new role, it's a lot to figure out.
Yeah.
You got to refigure out how you work now. Yeah. That's hard.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But
you're
But
doing
I-
really well with it, though, man.
thank you.
I mean, you obviously have done a lot of work on this, even
is
though
great.
you
Good
say
for
6
you.
months, but you can tell that
Yes.
your perspective and your awareness on what it is. You're noticing your patterns
Mhm.
and recognizing these patterns and saying, okay, how is this affecting me? What am I going to do about this pattern that's just happening subconsciously, right? Is this working for me?
Right.
And using a therapist sounds like to evaluate that, which is what we have to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The unexamined life, right? The life that we just let these patterns occur and we don't examine them, right? Eventually that creates a lot more pain than we need.
Right. Yeah, we're just trying to, and I'll dive into this a little bit because it's actually been really cool timing and
Okay.
and whatnot. Is talking a lot about buffaloes
Okay.
lately. So I'm in. Here we go.
Yeah, it is.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Let's hear
it's
about
cool.
buffaloes.
Yeah,
Let's hear about buffalo. So I'm just gonna start. So my after this happened, my dad, after we actually he went to the funeral home with me, and we were talking in the car, and he was just like, "Hey, my dad, my grandpa Don, he would always say, be a donkey in a storm, and he would say because donkeys face the storm instead of hide, they face the storm and go into the storm." And then I later, not too far after that, learned that buffaloes do the same thing, and I'm like, yeah, buffaloes are kind of cool. Donkeys, sorry,
Yeah, I wanna
Grandpa
be a
Don.
buffalo, not a donkey.
Yeah, I'd rather be a buffalo,
We're
not a
big
jackass.
boys.
You know. So, yeah, and so I've just been thinking like buffalo into the storm, and then I go to therapy, and I bring that up, and she like wide eyed, and she was like, "Okay, we need to talk about buffaloes because I've been really diving deep into them." And so we're start talking about them, and she sends me all these writings that she's researched like just recently about buffaloes. I leave that therapy session and I go to my brother Zach's that you guys know, and I sit down because I think I told you guys before we started that I want to
Do a sleeve.
Sleeve.
a sleeve
Yeah.
tattoo. And my first thought after that was like, you know what? I think everything just got changed. I'm going to get a buffalo on my arm, and then behind it, like a desert landscape
Yeah.
separating a Utah mountainous landscape with a
love
storm.
That's
beautiful.
so cool.
And so I went in and told Zach, I'm like, dude, I was thinking, I might get a tattoo there. And same thing, his eyes get wide eyed, and he's like, I've really been thinking about a tattoo as well. And I'm like, really? And he goes, and it's been a buffalo. He goes, you don't know? He goes, do you realize I've been obsessed with bison lately? And I'm like, no, I didn't know that. So we start talking about it, and I get a card from, it was actually follow me here, my stepdaughter's dad's grandma,
Oh, okay.
right? She's just yesterday sent me a card, and I got it in the mail. And I open it up, and she goes, she said, when I see you, I think of a buffalo going
What?
to a storm. And I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah. Like
It
all
just
these signs.
keeps following. And so that's
That's
been
cool.
my mantra, and just
love
kind
it,
of
man.
going through my mindset is just like, it sucks.
Be the buffalo.
And that storm might last 6 years, but honestly, it's probably gonna last my whole life.
Yep.
And so just keep going into the storm, and
The
Good
key
for you.
is
Just
to
keep
recognize
going.
also, talking about buffaloes,
yeah,
when was the last time you saw a buffalo alone?
never.
Interesting.
In fact,
think-
I've never thought about that. Even there's
They're pack animals.
a house
Yeah.
in Sandy that has buffalo in their backyard,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
but they have 2 of them.
Yep.
They're
That makes
pack
sense.
animals,
Mhm.
man. They you're not going to run into a storm by yourself just for fun.
Right.
You're going to run into a storm when you're surrounded
your
by your people,
Yeah.
and you're going to lock arm in arm and let's go, bitch. Boom.
Yeah.
We're going to, right? That's how we do
Exactly.
things. And this is the lesson of life that shows up over and over and over is like we're designed to connect to each other. It's about coming together. It's about learning how to help one another. And when we can take this stuff that we go through and it moves us to connect to each other and be better versions of ourselves collectively, everything I've gone through now has a purpose. There's meaning to it. It's not just for naught. It's not just because life sucks and horrible shit happens. No, life sucks.
Yeah.
Horrible stuff happens.
Life is terrible.
It's so brutal.
It's terrible. at
And
times.
we get to do it together for this really short, tiny, minuscule period of time. And that is why I wrestle with Should I play with my kid or do my school or do my homework or do my
Mhm.
work? Right? Like what am I going to do?
Right.
Both have outcomes.
Yeah.
Which one is the outcome that I want? And I can't choose the one every single time, but I have to trend towards connection. And when I do that, this thing that I've been through doesn't have to be just the thing that I went through. It can be the thing that I'm moving with
Right.
rather than leaving behind.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother way of looking at trauma.
And doing it with people,
With
with
yeah.
your people.
Yep. With your team.
And that's something I'm going to take because I haven't thought about that. The pack.
Yeah.
The pack
Gotta love
aspect
the
of the
buffaloes.
buffalo or bison
Gotta love it.
is don't go in the storm alone.
yeah.
No,
Oh,
Gather your people
Gather your
and
people,
ask them to go through it with
let's
you.
go.
And
I love it.
that's a big thing that I struggle with is asking for help.
Don't we all, man?
I
Yeah.
hate it. It's uncomfortable.
'Cause it
I feel
feels
like I'm
weak.
burdening people.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel it, and that's a big thing. I think just on a male aspect,
I
it
was gonna say male
feels
aspect. Yeah.
it makes you feel weak. Like, hey, I'm not strong enough to do this.
Yeah.
You know, hey, I can't take all this on. And I think that's just a natural thing that you just
Definitely.
battle with.
Battle
And
with,
it's
yeah.
been the hardest thing. You know, luckily I have wonderful neighbors that have offered to help, and of course my family and extended family. And you know, I have
Buffalo.
that, but even though I have that, you know, huge list of people who are like, hey, I want to
Yeah.
help, I still find myself like,
Sure.
I'm strong enough.
Definitely.
I got it.
Yeah.
I can
Definitely.
handle it.
But
It's-
I
rough.
wrestle with the same thing, man. Like
Mhm.
where do I reach out? Where do I not? I mean, it's tough to wrestle. But I mean, we can also ask our listeners for help. I mean, do you have is there anything that you're working on right now that you want to share with the listeners? I know Brittany had mentioned that you're doing kind of like like an awareness campaign, kind of like maybe tell us a little bit about that if people can follow or support you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's in the very beginning stages.
Sure.
And so it's just awareness at this point.
Okay.
Because a lot of knowledge I wish I would have known. And I think it's really important to talk about just because home birth is a big popular thing right now.
Sure.
Mhm.
Is one, if it makes sense, cool. If it doesn't, don't even risk it.
Yeah. Not worth
But
it.
two, there's so much that goes into the laws and regulations of midwifery
Okay.
that vary state to state.
Oh, okay.
And to be aware of those.
Okay.
And so I'm going to speak for Arizona. You know what
Sure.
Arizona's are because I don't know
You're
Utah's.
familiar with them.
I'm more
Yeah.
familiar with
Yeah.
Arizona. Arizona does not require midwives to have malpractice insurance.
Really?
None.
That's very interesting.
Really interesting, right? You'd think that they would because a lawyer has to have malpractice insurance.
I have to. I'm a freaking
Yeah.
therapist. Man.
I was
I
like,
There
we-
you go.
We
Shit
pay
ton of
for
money.
that.
I
It's
pay a lot of
expensive,
money.
too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
we
a
have to have it.
midwife bringing a baby into the world at home and caring for the mother of that baby doesn't have to have insurance.
That's very interesting.
So be aware of that.
Yeah,
Really
okay.
dive into, I think, Tennessee. The state of
Okay.
Tennessee, I believe, that's a requirement is malpractice insurance.
Okay.
So it varies state to state. So it's just regulations. It's just, you know, what does your state have? In Arizona right now, that's one thing that we're really trying to bring up is the lack thereof,
Okay.
especially with the Department of Health Services down there. I've found that they're really reactive. They only react to a complaint that's filed. They're not really monitoring what's happening.
Okay.
There's, you know, a lack of transparency with their, it's called the Statement of Deficiencies, kind of like investigation findings. There was,
I heard
Go
you.
ahead.
Sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
you're good.
That was very rude of me. I remember you saying in the beginning that Sarah changed the name of her business, her midwife business.
Mhm.
So
probably because there's lawsuits.
is okay. all
You would
right.
think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
And seeing, I mean, and
So there's no
Speculation,
regulations
but-
for that too, of like just hopping ship and going over and starting a new business. That's
There you
very
go.
interesting.
but if you go onto her license on the website, which is like 6 to 7 clicks to even get to the point where you search for her, so it's incredibly difficult. And if you Google, you know, just her name, it just brings up her websites. It doesn't even
Okay.
bring up
So
I
licensing.
think it's recently changed since we started talking.
Do you know how a
about
midwife
it,
gets her
but-
license?
So there's two different.
Okay.
Let me get to there, and I'll do
Okay,
the
yeah,
statement
go
of
ahead.
issues,
Sorry,
and then
totally
I'll get to
interrupted.
the levels of midwives. So, basically, there is a lack of transparency. So Jordan's case doesn't even say that they passed away.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't even say there was any deaths in that case. But the one before that, it took a year from November 22 is when the case happened, and they didn't publish it until November 2023, just a couple weeks before our situation happened. And they're using that case to revoke this midwife's license right
Okay.
now, which yes, her license is in the process of getting revoked.
Okay.
But they're using that old case that took a year to investigate and publish to revoke. And if they would have actually been efficient on that, we wouldn't have ever used her because she didn't have a license.
Okay.
So there's now two different midwives. There's a nurse midwife. They're like RNs.
Okay.
I think the acronym is a CNM,
Okay.
certified nurse midwife.
Oh, okay.
They're medically, they're registered nurses. They're all of that.
That's what Jordan was wanting to do, right?
She was wanting to be there.
Okay.
A CPM
Okay.
is a certified professional midwife.
Okay.
I can go be a certified professional midwife.
Hmm.
I just have to go take a couple courses, pass a couple tests, and get my certificates.
A lot
And
less
I'm
stringent.
a
Yeah.
CPM. That's
Okay.
what this Sarah lady was. She was a CPM.
Okay.
So, and then I think there's a CLM, certified licensed midwife, which I think is the lower of the three. But anyway,
Yeah.
so
Wow.
but just being aware of that, it's not just the term midwife.
Okay.
That there's
Good to know.
different levels, and to look into your state's laws and regulations before going into, and if looking into your medical history, if you have a history of big babies, if you have a C-section and a VBAC, I would say no VBAC at home.
Okay.
Like just avoid that because it's
It's such
you
a high
have minutes.
risk.
You have
right?
minutes.
Okay. That's
And
crazy.
to get to the hospital, just the transport to the hospital could be the difference maker.
Unbelievable.
And so just be diligent on it, because I'm not anti-home birth. If that's
Yeah.
what you want to do, if it makes sense, hell yeah, do it. But if it doesn't, it's not worth, and you're hearing it straight from me, it is not worth it.
Yeah.
For one, to lose your life, one, to lose a baby's life. But, for your husband, you lose your life. What does a husband have to go through?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just told you all about it,
Yeah.
and it's miserable.
And the child
Ugh.
without his mom now.
And it's miserable.
Yeah.
And a brother without his brother, and a sister
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
her brother.
Yeah.
Grandparents without their grandbaby.
Ugh,
Cousin without their cousin. It's not just me. It's
it
The ripple
affects a
effect
lot.
is huge.
the ripple effect is
Yeah.
enormous, and it's honestly going to affect a generation.
Wow.
Ugh, man. Well, that's
So-
awesome you're doing that. And
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Thanks for
coming
sharing your
on
story,
and
man.
sharing your story.
Thank you guys
and,
for
yeah, getting vulnerable and
allowing me to.
yeah.
Yeah, of course. Is there do you have like a GoFundMe or is there anything that you're doing actively that the listeners can help out with? Follow you, social media, anything you want to promote, so to speak.
There was a GoFundMe when Jordan passed that was to help me and the kids.
Uh-huh.
I think we're 6 months removed.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd
Good to
feel
go now.
silly to.
No,
Well,
you're
don't,
fine.
Don't
But-
feel silly, please.
um,
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, I mean, we're just doing all we can. Like I said, the whole awareness is at the beginning
Good.
stages.
Good.
Cool. Good
So,
for you. I love that.
I'm slowly transitioning my Instagram that was my personal one, to be more of a, I guess, the mothership of all of what's going on
Going
cool.
on. Yeah.
and
I
whatnot.
love
And then
that.
I'm
Keep
going
us
to be making
posted
my
on
own
that.
personal one for
Yeah.
my family and friends.
That's great.
Good
man.
for you.
So-
Yeah, keep us
That's-
posted on that. We'd love to help out however we can. Share
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Blast it, whatever you need.
Just changes because it's not regulated.
Yeah.
And I always say we live in United States of America in 2024, and this is the regulation we have on bringing babies into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's make a change on
It's
that.
pretty shortcoming,
Yeah.
it is.
pretty big shortcoming on that.
Yeah.
So we're trying.
Good for you, man.
Yeah. Good
Thank
for
you
you.
guys.
Yeah. Thank
Thanks
you
so much for coming on, bro.
Yeah.
Finding Strength podcast is sponsored by Avantacool.
Avantacool.
Avantacool. It's a fun word to
It
say.
is a fun word to say. What is Avantacool, Matt?
Avantacool sells cold plunges. Avantacool sells infrared saunas. Check out Avantacool at avantacool.com. If you use the code STRENGTH24, you will get a discount of 25% off any Avanticool products. How amazing is that?
That's a good discount. It
It
really
is.
is.
Do you like our cold plunge?
I love it.
It's nice, huh?
It is really nice.
great.
Stays clean.
Stays
it's
clean.
perfect. Whatever temperature I want it to be at, I can set that, and it's great.
We love it.
Go check 'em out.
Every penny. Check them out. Avanticool.com.